Hey guys, Chef Ro here. Welcome to our next edition of I'm Not Saying You're Doing It Wrong, but today we're going to make ganache. So the biggest mistake people make in ganache is that they don't use the heat of the cream properly. Okay, so first things first, you're going to need to chop your chocolate nice and fine. And if you notice, I have this in a very narrow bowl. You got to do the narrowest bowl that you can find. That way your cream will fully cover your chocolate. Okay, then you want to bring your cream to a simmer. So I have this to a simmer here. So the second it comes to a simmer, you're going to pour it over your chocolate. Okay, and then all you want to do, a little bit of a shake to get as much of that chocolate covered as possible. Notice I am not stirring it yet. This is where people go wrong. The reason that you want to wait. Chocolate has a couple of enemies. Number one, heat. Number two, water. They have other, chocolate has a lot of enemies, but those are the biggest two. You need to use a very gentle heat to melt chocolate. That's why you don't do it straight in the pot. If you have a high enough percentage of butter to coat it, you can, but in general, when you're making ganache, you're using the heat of the cream itself to melt the chocolate. But stirring is not cooking, and so if I stir too fast, all the heat's going to escape into the air, and then I won't have any heat left to melt the chocolate. Have you ever noticed when you start melting chocolate, as soon as it starts melting, the rest of it melts faster? Okay? This is because the heat of the chocolate is continuing to melt the chocolate. So you need to wait 30 to 60 seconds minimum. So you can see how long I've waited here. I haven't touched it even a little bit. And if you do it this way, you're much more likely to have your chocolate melt completely without having to put it back on a double boiler or anything like that, okay? But the key is you've got to get that cream hot. You've got to get a bowl small enough that the cream covers the chocolate, and then you have to have a little patience, which is the hardest thing to do. So let's take a look here. All right, so I have let this sit for a few minutes. Now we're going to take our whisk and we're going to give it a trusty stir here, okay? And if you notice, it's already almost melted, okay? That's what letting that heat sit and do its job that's what we've done. By letting that cream do its job, if you notice, now this chocolate is melting and it's a nice creamy ganache, okay? If you still feel a few chunks, stop, let it sit for a minute, then go back. Let that remainder of the heat do the thing. Now, if you've cut your chunks too big and this still hasn't done its job, or you don't have enough cream so that it hasn't had enough chance to melt it all, then you can put it back on a double boiler, but be very careful. You don't ever want the heat to be on the chocolate. So you want the water to come, you don't want the water to touch the bowl. So you bring the water to a simmer, turn it off, and then put the bowl on. Now you know the secret to making a perfectly smooth ganache, because I'm not saying you've been doing it wrong, but